around there, then September 11th happens. And I remember watching that and going, I don't know, something shook me. Fear
Wow.
entered my heart at a level that I had not ever had, where I was like, oh, this is for real. Like life is for real. Jesus, I knew Jesus was for real. Like he's going to come back and the earth is shaking and stuff's not good. Even though I was all high, I could understand like the World Trade Centers. This is bigger than what I've opened my mind to before. And that sort of started me thinking a little bit differently about stuff,
Mm.
but then it wasn't fully impacting me. Um, and then another friend got me this job at a really nice restaurant. So I'm working at this super fancy, like the best restaurant in Des Moines, Iowa at the time. Really nice. And uh like the but one of the chefs is like selling ecstasy to everyone on the side. So it's kind of like I'm sort of starting to normalize some because I want to work this job and they're training me to like be a chef, but we're all still doing drugs. And one day out of nowhere, I go in there and they're like, Seth, you yelled at this other chef, you're fired. And I was like, no, I never yelled at him. And they're like, yeah, you yelled at him and you're fired. I'm like, no, you can't. No, I didn't do it. And I have no recollection of it, but they just fire me. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm done. And I went to my friend's house. We smoked a joint. I said, I got to go to my house. I go to my house. I grab a gun. I had a Glock. I stick the Glock in my mouth and I start to just cry. And I start saying things like, Seth, I wish I would have just listened to my mom. I wish I would have listened to my pastors. I wish I would have listened to my teachers. I wish I could start my life over. I wish I
Mm.
could just be born again. And I heard that come out of my mouth, this born again. And then somebody walks right through the wall into the room. And I knew who it was because he said, you must be born again. And I was like, Jesus, if you're real and you can make me born again, you have to do it or I'm going to pull the trigger. And I just started weeping uncontrollably. And I just started like all these sins were coming out of me. I just confessed, I don't know how long, hours of just stuff, memories pouring out of my mouth. And I woke up the next day totally free from drugs, totally
Wow.
delivered, never had a relapse, never had a withdrawal, never had to go to a
No
program, never
way.
had, just totally free from it all. And yeah, that was my second. I mean, I had encounters with God, like God saying, don't smoke crack. And there was a few of those throughout the years, but this was the second real dramatic, like, oh, now
Bro,
God is.
it's so crazy that God would come into the room, meet you where you're at, and just be like, bro, you got to accept me. And in that you'd get completely free
Yeah,
of addiction. Was there nothing left? Like you didn't
no.
smoke cigarettes or anything after that?
I mean, I struggled with cigarettes. It was crazy. Like I started learning powerful things in those times. Like I would go buy a pack of cigarettes, smoke one, feel like I needed another. So I'd smoke another one. And I had this thought. It ran through my head, Seth, the only reason you're struggling with smoking is because you still believe you need a cigarette. And it was like this one thought, I need a cigarette, is keeping you smoking. And I was like, well, that's a dumb thought. So it's kind of like a sozo almost of like, hey, this is a lie. When you disagree with the lie, believe the truth, things miraculously happen. I'm like, so I did struggle for a little bit with smoking, but I'm like, all of it's
You know what's
gone.
so interesting? What's so interesting is the reason why I said smoking specifically is I've heard similar testimonies over and over again of people getting completely free of drugs, right? But
Yeah.
then they still have this smoking thing,
Wow.
or or like a small other addiction that like they had to work through, they had to like process through. And part of like my working theory, I don't know like if this is
Yeah.
true or not, but I do think that God in a certain way makes it a fair fight. He's like, this
Yeah.
stuff right here, like beyond, this is beyond you. Like I'm going to
Out of
rescue you
your,
from this. But
yeah.
this right here, like me and you are going to work through this. You're going to
Yeah.
learn how to trust me. You're going to learn how to some perseverance. You're going to learn how, and I've heard that, like I've had that same scenario over and over and
Wow.
over again in
Yeah.
so many different people. And
Wow.
man, that's so crazy. So obviously was the end for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it the 1-step program. Like he stepped into my body and all the drugs stepped out. Like I felt like, for me, I felt like it was a spirit, like one spirit that wanted me addicted to whatever I was. It didn't matter. It wasn't like a certain drug. You know, I just felt like it was a spirit that was like, I don't know, a spirit of addiction or something. Like, I don't know if that's even like a legit thing, but
Who knows?
like there was something that left me, and that I didn't even crave it. I didn't crave it. I didn't want it. I was
Wow.
repulsed by it. Everything was gone. Like it almost as if it wasn't me. Or I got so born again that the Seth who that was so dead that there's no like, okay, maybe that was,
Resuscitation.
yeah, maybe that was me, but he's really dead and buried and gone, and I'm a new creation all of a sudden.